Another edition of Beat the Closing Number presented by thelines.com. I'm Eli Hershkovich, joined as always by the man Justin Perri. You can follow him on X at JustinPerry8. Find his work over at Shot Quality Bets and Hoops HQ. We're talking Champ Week futures for conference tournaments, the high major ones, along with some mid-major action and matchups through Thursday, single game bets that we have on the card. Justin, the time has finally arrived. We are less than a week away until Selection Sunday.
I mean, it is the best time of the year. Champ Week is some of the most fun. I mean, maybe there's a little bit less attraction to the start of some of these Power 5 conferences this season because of how abysmal the bottom is, but we've had such a great weekend. Tickets getting punched. Not really too many bid stealing scenarios just yet, but the better ones are on the horizon. It's going to be a fun few days leading into Selection Sunday. And before you know it, we're going to be giving out our picks on who's going to make the Sweet 16, who has the best pathway, where you want to put some futures on once we see the draw. Like, again, 6-7 days away from that. It doesn't even feel real yet. I still feel like we have a couple weeks of the regular season left to go, but every game left is single elimination. It is time.
Let's tip it off, Justin. Big East Conference futures, because I have a pick there, and we have a single game pick for the quarterfinals. The only one that's set so far, number 4 Marquette against number 5 Xavier. Keep in mind, we're recording this on Monday afternoon, so no game odds out yet. We're basing our thoughts on potential projections and just the way the bracket shakes out in general. But if we look at the current Big East tournament odds over at Caesar Sportsbook, St. John's, which opened around plus 115 at that respective operator, plus 135 now. Creighton, plus 425. UConn, the two-time defending champion, not just national title-wise, but also cutting down the nets at the Garden, plus 440. Marquette, plus 500. Xavier, they've dipped a bit, plus 950. Then it's Nova, plus 1,600. And Butler, and so on and so forth, 80-1 and above. So as a Johnny's fan, a lot of different angles to approach this, but Davion Smith, we don't know what his status is going to be for the tournament after missing the game at Marquette on Saturday. I know we were both pissed off at the way that game ended, considering we had some bets on the Golden Eagles. Chase Ross throwing the ball away before Zuby Ejiofor, your guy, getting the Gabe Woody layup at the buzzer. So it's not only that, but St. John's kind of locked into that 2-line, maybe borderline 3 for the NCAA tournament. So how do you see the Johnnies approaching this, whether it's motivation to win the Big East tournament or their eyes set on March Madness?
I fully believe St. John's is too well coached to never go out. Like, I don't think they could ever not try in a game. I don't think you're coached by Rick Pitino if you're going to ever give less than everything. And I don't know. I mean, you think there might be some gamesmanship and Pitino might want to rest some guys, but it looks like they're managing their injuries fine. A great win at Marquette, sealing up an incredible season. No doubts about it. No qualms. The season sweep of the only other ranked team in the conference. It's what dreams are made of for St. John's, so I imagine it continues. I just haven't seen anything that tells me that anyone's going to beat them in the confines of Madison Square Garden. They are undefeated there. So you have to say, okay, who's really going to come in and change that? It would have to take maybe an injury or something, or a slight injury, a precautionary absence potentially. But I don't see that happening. I mean, again, they have a good draw, and I like Xavier. I think that's where the value is. I think Marquette could do it. They have a good team. Cam Jones gets hot. I don't really sign up for the third time's a charm narrative. It is not. If anything, it starts to get – I would lean towards St. John's. So I don't really have a bet of future on this one right now, but it would be Xavier. They've been the team that's been the most mispriced in this conference for us all season long. 9.5-1, I think, is pretty indicative of where they are, but it should probably be like 100 points shorter. And I'm not too shy to take that value if I really want to bet on it. If I'm going to the games, that Xavier can shoot, and they can also they keep you from getting good looks on defense. So it's a worthy investment. If anyone's going to be able to make St. John's pay for the way they play, right, which is they can't shoot and they make you take bad shots, Xavier can hit them, and Xavier is going to make them shoot. So it might be the perfect antithesis to St. John's. It was close overtime at the Garden, right? I was there.
They should
Crazy
have won
game.
that game.
They should have won that game. Should have won that game. It should have been the only loss at the Garden. They should, for sure. But a little bit of magic. But again, I think that proves Xavier has the formula. So I do think they're the ones that could do it. They're the only ones that would get my money. And yeah, I think I like them here against Marquette, who maybe feels like they're already looking to the tournament. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not a big Marquette's been so disappointing. So they got to wake up at
Especially
some
of
point.
late.
Shaka Smart's a great coach. So this is where they should perk up at least a bit. It's kind of do or die time. So let's see.
To your point about Xavier, so I fired Xavier plus 1,300 yesterday. This is where it gets kind of tricky because plus 950, if you do the math, money line rollover, considering Xavier's going to be a short dog to Marquette. We'll touch on that game specifically here in a second. But money line rollover would get you a better price than plus 950, plus 800, whatever book you're looking at. But then it gets dicey. What if Butler takes down St. John's, considering how close those games have been? Now, it's unlikely, but Butler took St. John's to the wire in both of those regular season matchups. Granted, Kadari Richmond wasn't healthy for the second one at Hinkle, but both of those games were close. So I would advocate, if I had to take a position right now without my Xavier future that I bet yesterday, probably money line rollover based on the price. I mean, you brought it up. Who's playing the best right now out of St. John's in the Big East? It's Xavier. When you look at Barthag per Bartorvik, since January 22nd, when Xavier lost that game in overtime to St. John's, they're 25th in Barthag. They're ahead of Creighton, they're ahead of UConn, and they're ahead of Marquette. So over the last month plus, Xavier is the second best team in this conference. And how have all those teams outside of St. John's, because we know they're elite defensively, all those defenses struggle against motion offenses? You mentioned how Xavier could shoot the rock at a very efficient rate, up-tempo offense. That's also how you beat a press-heavy team, which St. John's can be when they get down in games. Xavier, 95th percentile in efficiency per synergy on dribble handoffs. So not only back cuts, but also just off-ball action. Sean Miller's motion offense, playing more up-tempo, more than he did at Arizona for some stretches in his latter years with the Wildcats. So I really like the Xavier team. You go back to that St. John's loss. Not only should they have won the game just based off of the latter part of the second half when they were up by double digits for most of it, but Swain also got hurt.
Right.
With about...
Had to leave middle. He was playing great.
Yeah. They all were playing great. Conwell was hitting contested three after contested three. So I think shot quality had it at halftime where the game could have been a little bit closer. But it goes to the point that Xavier is an elite shot-making team. This team has rounded it to form ever since Zach Freemantle came back from injury in the beginning of Big East play. Keep in mind, when Xavier lost to St. John's at home, Freemantle was just coming back from injury. And also you have the motivational angle. Yes, Xavier is technically on the right side of the bubble, but some bracketologists have them in the first four in Dayton. So you want to get yourself out of the first four, out of the bubble. You win this game against Marquette, we'll handicap it in a moment, and you beat St. John's, you're a lock, right?
Yep. No, definitely. I think you get in, this is another win over the Field. One of your few chances in the season. You got to have it. I think they lose it, it's pretty tough for them. But they win it, and it looks pretty good. So I hate the narrative, the must-have, all that stuff, but it's a resume-defining game is the right way to say it.
So how do you handicap Xavier Marquette? Marquette, the number 4 seed, Xavier, the number 5 seed. That game tipping off on Thursday afternoon, I believe, on Peacock. Clearly, we both like Xavier long-term, or at least me, futures-wise, the bet I made yesterday, as in Sunday, we're recording here on Monday, March 10th, you just based on the price, theoretically, although you kind of like St. John's too. But with this matchup, where do you see the edge for the Musketeers against Marquette?
I mean, again, assuming the line comes out around Marquette minus 1.5, 2, I think that it's just wrong. It's wrong. Xavier should be favored by probably more, like a 2.5. based on how they've looked, how they've played, this is an interesting spot, and this is something that you can definitely get an edge on because the way that Xavier has played with and without Fremantle is as a big deal. The way that they've played recently, and it feels like something's kind of clicked for the team, and you can see that when you go look at some of their statistics and you go look at your Haslametrics, your Bart Torvik pages that very nicely show the adjusted efficiencies over time on the very easy to understand graphs with the averages and all this stuff. Guess what? Xavier trending up the whole season. So if you're going to take their body of work, get losses to St. John's early in the season, loss to Georgetown, terrible loss to Michigan, they've looked much, much more improved, knocking out 94, 95 level game scores time in and time out in the last month. You just have to, at some point, it's really an example and an exercise even of where do you draw the line? Where do you start to say, okay, that's the old team. This is the new team. They figured something out. Like, what data do you really want to base this off of? And if you're going to go off of what we're seeing with Xavier, which has been backed up, these are not fraudulent results because, again, we have the shot quality to back it up. We know that if anything, they were expected to play this well at some point. So this is a validation for shot quality. It's not
seventh
it's not an
in
right.
shot quality adjusted D.
Right. So they've been expected to be the second best team in the conference for the entire time. SQ notoriously down on St. John's. They just continue. It's tough to do what St. John's is doing. I mean, it's awesome, but they are definitely expected to have a lot less wins. Nonetheless, it's a spot to get Xavier. The shooting is going to survive. They clearly can play at the Garden. If you like the narrative of Marquette being in the tournament, not really having to worry, and Xavier having to worry, everything's lining up. You're going to get the spot tax, my guess. So I wouldn't be shocked to see a pick 'em, tell you the truth. And I still like it. I think you can still take it.
Me too. Yeah, I'll be betting this one on open once the odds come out on Wednesday afternoon.
You can play. You can. I think this is one of those games you can play. Probably right to that the true number, which is a possession. Because it's one of these games we talked about a lot with Xavier. If they're gonna succeed, they're probably gonna go above and beyond that number because it's gonna lead to successful 3-point shooting. And teams that get hot, stay hot. How much changes in a short amount of time? Xavier's shooting well now, was getting good looks before, but wasn't shooting well. So if they're now getting good looks and shooting well, it would take, again, that similar seasonal shift that we knew was underperforming the median line, and now we know is overperforming the median line. But it was pretty sticky underneath. There's plenty of reason to believe that it would stick now. So I don't think you should be scared. I think you're essentially going against the storm, per se, of buying against the early season Xavier woes that are sort of priced in and saying, well, maybe they shouldn't be. Maybe this isn't that team. And I'll take that price, that 9-1, that 8.5 to 1. It's not really offered in New York because it's played in New York, and so I'm trying to see if I have some prices. But yeah, I like it. I like it.
If we look at Marquette, I mentioned how UConn, Creighton, Marquette struggles against motion. Golden Eagles grade in the 9th percentile or worse defending back cuts and off-ball action, so down screens per synergy. If you go back to the first and both meetings between Xavier and Marquette, Cam Jones shot under 40% from the field. The thing with Xavier's defense, not only is Swain a Swiss Army knife, but specifically an elite on-ball defender because you're throwing a 6'8 guy on a 6'1 guy at best in Jones, although Jones is an elite scorer in pick and roll and ball screen sets, but Swain his length is absurd. And then you could switch Marcus Foster because Xavier switches on ball screens. Foster, a really good defender too, coming over from Furman. We touched on, or at least you hinted at it from the beginning of the show, talking about long shot Final Four odds as we get closer to handicap in the tournament with Selection Sunday being in less than a week. I threw some money down on Xavier, like pizza money, small bet on Xavier to make the Final Four on Sunday at 110-1.
Ooh.
Just because if they win if they win the tournament, that price is
Yeah,
long
yeah.
gone.
I
But
gotta go back and do my last Final Four sweep before the draw. Yeah,
what do you think of
that's
that
probably a
price?
good bet. No, I like that price a lot. I like the price a lot. They're very undervalued. I would assume again to make the Final Four. The way I think the easiest way to play the futures game, if you're new to it, you want to get exposed to it, is you play the comparison game. You go take a peek at who else is priced at 110-1 right now. Utah State, West Virginia. A little bit worse is North Carolina 130, SMU 140. A little better, Ohio State, Texas, Indiana. They're behind those teams. I mean, yeah, New Mexico now back to 80-1, which I think is a really good value, actually. That kind of fell. That was all the way at 40-1. I have a little 80-1. I like that. Um, but yeah, I do like that Xavier, and I think you can play New Mexico too. I don't know what else there really is out there right now, but those two feel pretty good. It's hard to make a run out of that area, but Xavier, if you like Yale, I mean, if you want to buy low on Boise, now is the time to do it. We're going to get into them a little bit, but I mean, some interesting lines there for sure. I like the 110-1. That could happen. Big East being slept on this season, I think.
I'm with you. With you to an extent. Over to the Big 12 tournament, which tips off on Tuesday. We're not going to discuss high-level conference tournament odds here just because Justin and I don't have a bet. Neither of us have a bet for the Big 12 conference tournament futures. But Justin does have a wager on a first-round game in this conference tournament. Number 9 seeded TCU against 16-seeded Colorado. KenPom has it TCU -1. The point spread as of Monday afternoon, TCU -1.5. Justin, this is our sicko game of the week. So take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a sicko game. It's a fun one, I think, because Colorado has kind of been the team you can pick on a little bit right now in this conference, and we're seeing that this game scheduled for Tuesday, the opening round, very much a structured bracket, so we don't know anything else after these first 4 games. I think if you're looking at how these teams have looked, a little bit of an improvement for Colorado, but I don't exactly trust them per se. I do think TCU is a bit of the better team here. Shot quality likes them a lot more. We saw them just play each other, and I love this aspect of it. We saw a 20-point win for Colorado last game of the year. I'm not really too sure how cognizant everybody was of what they were showing off. But if you're sitting there and you're the coach of TCU and you're like, well, why would we show them everything we're about to do when the season's on the line? Coach Jamie Dixon probably didn't exactly put together his best effort. Was the second worst game of their season. So they were looking pretty good. They had some good efforts. They righted the ship against UCF, who kind of clobbered them to start Big 12 play. Some good wins. They beat Texas Tech late season, and that's not a poor win whatsoever. I don't care if it was at home or on the road. They lost on the road to Cincy and West Virginia, and then beat UCF at home. Barely lost to Baylor, who's I think is also still pretty good, and then what is this game? Get clobbered by Colorado, 4 of 18 shooting from deep, just terrible. So I don't really think they were giving it their all. I'm going to come out and say, if anything, I think TCU is the better squad, knows how to get this win, and this is a tough spot for Colorado. I do think they are going to struggle a little bit here. I think this game, where are they playing this one? They play the Big 12 in
Kansas City.
Right. So I do think that should be a little bit more beneficial for TCU, who's a little bit, maybe not a newcomer to the conference by just a year or 2 years, 3 years now.
Sure.
But hopefully travels a little bit better. Just need to get the win. I don't really see Colorado as that team. So shot quality likes them by a good margin. This is definitely a spot you want to lay this small amount. TCU within a possession for sure. -1.5 is a nice play.
Colorado, in that 20-point win over TCU in the regular season finale, had 14 turnovers. Didn't really matter when it came to the final score, but Buffs are 351st in turnover rate offensively, and TCU, it's a staple under Jamie Dixon's ball pressure defense, 63rd in forcing opponents to turn the ball over in terms of opponents' turnover rate. So worth noting there. I agree with you on the play. Maybe a little bit higher than KenPom, so you're not getting as big of an edge, but I think that's the side if you want to bet this game. On to another conference tournament starting on Wednesday, and we're not going to handicap an individual game here, but looking at the AAC, the American Athletic Conference Tournament futures odds, Memphis, which is 31st in KenPom when you look at luck rating, but also based on their non-conference strength of schedule. They're even money, according to Caesars, as you see the odds on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, to win the AAC Conference Tournament. North Texas right behind them at plus 220. Then it's UAB at plus 575. UAB lost to Memphis about a week and a half or so ago at home. Could have contended for the regular season conference title had they had won that game as a short home dog. FAU plus 1,200. Tulane 20-1. The list goes on and on. Wichita State, Temple. Anything for you here when it comes to a bet? Would you take the chalk at right around even money, or how are you looking to approach this one?
Opposite. I would love a sports book to hang a field type bet here, because I would love the field against Memphis and UNT. That's what I would like. So I'm going to effectively build that with the teams I like, and it's going to be ugly because if you want to play the field, you got to play the field. If you're going to say I think the value that those two teams are overvalued, you cannot skimp and avoid the bottom of the barrel because, they might not. Well, what if they do? Then you lose all your money, right? You can't play around with this stuff, Eli. I'm going to get a little cute because I don't want to bet every single team. But UAB 750, FAU 14-1, Wichita 40-1, ECU 55-1, Charlotte 1,000-1.
Wow.
On FanDuel. I know. I will take those. And I will assumedly see Memphis and UNT in the tournament regardless. They played very well this season. I don't know. This is a very good conference. Very good conference. So I think you want to take those dogs.
Why fade Memphis and UNT? I'm not saying this as a devil's advocate, or more of a devil's advocate rather than me advocating for one or both.
No, I think this is just a spot where we have this in terms of the shot quality on the conference as honestly, one where these teams aren't that much further away. Memphis is very close to UAB. So if you really wanted one, if you're like, okay, Justin, I don't want to bet the whole thing. Give me one. It's UAB. 750 is a nice price here. We have them just an inch or two behind Memphis. Their offense is very dominant. Yaxel is going to be the best player on the floor likely in every game. It's just, can he take over? Can he get denied? North Texas and Memphis both very lucky this season. So, I'll go against them. FAU right behind North Texas in quality. So that's kind of why.
Go back to when Memphis and UAB played on March 2nd. So, like I said, about a week and a half ago, 10 days, a couple Sundays, Haggerty had a huge game, 25, 9 of 16 from the field, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. And that's what you're kind of betting against here. Memphis's guards going off on a neutral floor, or at least shooting efficiently. Tigers didn't shoot well in that game at UAB, yet won the game outright as a short road favorite, under 30%, but 60% from two. And that's the thing with Memphis. They dominate the offensive glass, or when they're successful offensively, that's what they do. The Illinois transfer, Dane Danger, had 17 boards in that one of the best second chance shot creators in college basketball. Tyrese Hunter, you also have him, two-time transfer, most recently coming over from Texas. So I'm with you. If I was to bet a future in this conference, it would be UAB, but I like the approach of taking long shots. What's your philosophical angle? We talked about this a little bit on last week's episode of Beat the Closing Number when it came to taking some darts, especially in the MVC. Unfortunately, none of them got home. I was near tears on Friday night when UNI came back from 19 down and they lose by 1 because they missed 10 frickin' free throws. But what can you do, man? It's March. Same thing with Marquette. They also missed 10 free throws on Saturday. But What's your angle when you look at taking a boatload of long shot futures bets and trying to fade a favorite like Memphis and or UNT?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if you saw my Albany -7.5 pick of the day on Saturday, but they were up like 14 and they scored
Oh
like
man.
they got brutal. Um, welcome to college ball.
Yeah.
My look, I'm holding the Youngstown one, right? I got 9.5 to 1 Youngstown against Cleveland State. Tonight, night of recording here on Monday, gonna be watching that one closely, letting it ride, no hedge. It's a nice number. I had some IPFW as well. I just thought there would be some value on Oakland winning or Milwaukee losing at some point, and that was correct. And I think my philosophy is really just trying to find the teams that are overvalued. Don't try to find the undervalued. Try to find the overvalue and then play everything else. And just strategically go to the bracket, say, okay, this team's going to get a little too much love. This is the team everyone thinks is too good. This is the team that's been hot all season. This is the team that it feels scary to fade, your UNA, whatever. It's hard. But, yeah, I think you just go and you say, all right, well, it's college basketball at the mid-major level, and nothing ever goes according to plan. I mean, I was just looking at some of the stuff today because, the Jerome's due in my first round looked terrible because I missed on a bunch. That's okay. I'm assuming a lot of people did. But,
Can I
think
get a link for that? By the way, I keep DMing Trilly. He says, yeah, you could do the second week because I forgot to do it in week 1. I need a link, okay?
I think it's just playthejerome.com, Eli.
Okay. Maybe I'm just dumb in that regard. Not to interrupt
Play the Jerome. No, it's all right. Playthejerome.com. Wave 2, I haven't seen come on the site yet, but I think you can find that on Trilly's Twitter.
I'll take it.
And yeah, I think you can join whenever, and there's all the data comes back anyway. So it's fun. There's like 1,000 people doing it, but and it's free. So nonetheless, there's a lot of strategy to it, but I think the key one for me is really just trusting that, honestly, some of these teams at the top, especially when you get to like the mid-major level, when you have an auto bid, when you have a Memphis, like I don't know. Are they really going to deliver that championship here? Or are they going to be focused on going to the big dance? Because how big of a deal are these conference tournaments and these conference championships to teams, to players, to recruits, to programs? I tend to think they're important if things fall the right way, but like I don't think you're seeing a team give every inch they have to try to win a game that they're down big in the first half and they don't have it. I don't think Memphis is going to like cry if they lose that game. It's not the end of their season. So like I think it's so funny, but the tiers are a good signal. If a team's not going to cry at the end of the game in March, it's probably not worth putting your money on.
Villanova fluke girl and Northwestern, like a 10-year-old when they lost in the first round or second round to Gonzaga, whatever it was, 5 or so years ago. Those are the crying images that stand out to me in March Madness.
Sure, right. And then again, you know what I'm talking about, though. It's just like if I don't really see UNT sitting there like, okay, well, if we don't raise this banner, our season's over. And again, that's not really the only reason why I'm handicapping it this way, but it helps, right? Because not only does it plays in the shot quality data, which is that both these teams very overrated. This is a very flat conference at the top. People don't think that. I think you can go as far down as you want in this one. I think you can play East Carolina, Wichita. You can touch UTSA, Charlotte, and then I would probably let like Tulane, USF, Rice, Tulsa, and Temple fall to the wayside, and essentially take that wager on like 6 teams. You can take that wager because they're all like 50. Like, sure, if you get UAB, all right, not great. Maybe you should leave UAB out. Maybe you go big long shot. You don't even trust UAB because you're only going to take home a unit if you get UAB right, 2 units. But still, I think it's a worthwhile shot. Play them small, have some fun with it. You don't want to be rooting for the favorite. It's easy for them to go down. Happens all the time, especially with those teams coming in with the momentum when you have the bye. Woo! March, baby. It's crazy. We saw Sunbelt, both the 1 and the 2 lost. We got the 3 versus the 4 in the championship tonight. So just goes to show, especially at the mid-major level, sometimes you don't want to be that stagnant one. sometimes the best team isn't necessarily the one that had the best record luck. Sometimes the record luck leads to better records, better standings. It's interesting, especially now with these bigger conferences and you can't play everyone twice. So a lot needs to go into this stuff.
So you mentioned you theoretically looking to fade overvalued teams rather than undervalued. Well, I will say, as we shift over to the Mountain West Conference tournament and a game specifically on Thursday, I think this is the antithetical because you're looking to back the undervalued Boise State Broncos 5 seed against the 4 seed San Diego State Aztecs. You know, the cheesy line that we're going to hear all week, even though it, I guess, supports your take here. You can't beat a team 3 times, or it's very difficult to beat a team 3 times. San Diego State sweeping Boise State in the regular season. KenPom makes this game SDSU -1, so you would assume you're going to get a pick-ish on a neutral in Vegas. I can't wait to watch the Mountain West Conference tournament, one of my favorite conference tournaments of all. What do you make of it, man? How do you handicap this game?
I'm going down with the ship, Eli. We have been anti-San Diego State and full speed ahead Boise all season long. It's cost me money. But I know if I were to take my foot off the gas, it's going to be the day that they do it. And they are the better team. San Diego State, fading San Diego State has been plenty profitable all season long. They have definitely been a bit of a letdown. I think people thought they were going to be even better than where they are at now. The defense has been a little so-so. Boise, man, I don't know what's going on. They just continue to struggle. And they have all the makings of one of these great teams. They defend the hoop really well, rebound really well, attack the hoop really well, get to the free throw line, slow you down. But the problem is that when they miss their shots, they don't have the tempo to get back in a game. So when, things start getting a little ugly, and look, they had a good run to end the season. That's not to say they didn't.
That Colorado State game was odd. I mean, they closed
were
as a
expected to win
6-point
it.
favorite. Yeah.
Colorado State shot 85% at the rim. And they shot 95% on free throws. They made 21 of 22 free throws. So,
nearly 50% from 3.
Right. Absurdly hot shooting. Nick Clifford. And Boise State was cold from 3. Give me Boise. I'm probably going to end up being a pick of the day tomorrow or Wednesday, whenever that is. But
Thursday,
Thursday. Days aren't really real anymore. It's just March. It's just March Day. I think that we have some real reason to trust this team here and look the kind of the pain, the fear of going and backing them again and fading San Diego State again and saying, nope, this is it. Got to do it. I'll be there. I think, you got to just trust it long term. It's not about the one win. And yes, you might lose. Sure. Okay. It's let's say you lose 3 in a row on Boise State. And I don't want to go back for the 4th. Well, what if that's the win? Now you're just 1-3 instead of 0-3. So you got to do it. You got to trust it. You got to take the data long term. You can't get afraid. So let's get after it. Go Boise. Go Broncos. Right.
Any thoughts here on the under potentially? 2 teams that rank bottom 110 in adjusted tempo per KenPom. Top 4 defenses in Mountain West Conference play. Again, the familiarity factor, you played twice, both of them being, the second one more so just because Boise really struggled to score in that second meeting after losing to SDSU at home. Yeah. Lost by 17, 64-47. So that one going well under. Total thoughts on top of the lean toward Boise as a short dog or maybe a pick 'em?
Yeah, I would.
First game of the tournament for both.
Open up 133-ish. I would assume maybe 131.5, maybe as low as 129.5. Honestly, with how these totals have been going, I would probably think that's a good line. Cop out, I know, but. Yeah, I think, non-tournament scenario, 133.5, tournament scenario, 130.5, 129.5 is right, and I assume that's where it's going to be. So now maybe San Diego State team total under, because again, I just think they're going to lose. So I think for me, it's just playing. I prefer to get that in with Boise rather than the team total, because I don't want to care if it's a fast or slow paced game. I just want to care that my team has a better per possession efficiency.
I will say Boise State's Mountain West Conference tournament title odds have gotten bet down a bit. They're as
Yeah.
low as plus 430 over at Caesars Sportsbook. If I was to
I'm
take a
not
team,
taking it, by the way.
you're
Yeah,
not.
I would,
Okay.
but I'm not. I won't do it.
They're the team, like this profile wise, this is a team that I would bet to win a conference tournament just because you could dictate a slower pace, number one in defensive rebounding rate, and number one in offensive rebounding rate in Mountain West play. And also, when you think about shot variance, yes, they're 297th in 3-point efficiency across Division One, but on the flip side, if they shoot well, because they're top 115 in 3-point attempt rate. So the potential for positive variance is also there on a neutral floor. You have Dagenhart, who could theoretically take over any game. But yeah, I would say the winner of this game, even though the setup may not benefit the winner just based on the structure of this conference tournament, Boise or San Diego State could very well make a run.
I'm excited. I hope they do.
But you're not taking it.
I am not. I don't think I can. It just doesn't make sense to me. The odds aren't big enough. I need a little more. I think or I'm just late. I might just be late.
Well, what about, let me add quick thought here. And again, I'm putting you on the spot. So if you would rather just pass, feel free to say so. But when you look at, again, the setup of this tournament, they would get the winner of, assuming New Mexico beats either San Jose State and Wyoming, they would play New Mexico in the semifinal on Friday. So would you consider moneyline rollover? Because that'll get you better odds.
I would in that spot. And again, I think, the high variability versus probably, feeling secure won the regular season outright. Yeah, I'll take the money line rollover in that scenario.
Okay. On to one other individual game here, looking at the Big Ten tournament, which tips off on Wednesday. Indiana and Oregon. 8 seed Oregon, number 9 Indiana. The winner faces Michigan State. The Spartans are favored to win the conference tournament in Indianapolis, plus 250 on Caesars Sportsbook. Maryland right behind them. Then Purdue and Wisconsin, UCLA. Wisconsin and UCLA would likely face off in the quarterfinals on Friday. But if you go back to when these two teams squared off, by the way, KenPom making this one as around a 2-point favorite for the Ducks, even though this is going to be a de facto home game for Indiana in Indianapolis. But Oregon winning the game last week, covering as a 6-point favorite. Keep in mind, Indiana was up late by about a point or two in the final 2 minutes. Indiana's 4-out offense gave Oregon a lot of problems against the Ducks matchup zone. Keep in mind, Oregon 25th in KenPom's luck rating, 3 overtime wins, 5-1 in games decided by 3 points or fewer. Yes, that's credit to Dana Altman and Jackson Shelstad's elite level shot making. But Ballo had a huge game, or very efficient game, I should say, in that meeting in Eugene last week. 5 of 6 shooting at the rim. Oregon ranks in the 21st percentile on opponents' post-up efficiency allowed on a points per possession basis per synergy. So I like Indiana catching a couple points, maybe even on the money line here, or plus money, depending on when you can get this. I could see a closing as a pick, just considering the home court advantage-ish for the Hoosiers. Any thoughts for you here?
I lean Indiana, but only in my heart. The data says, Park, bad boy, trying to steal some fish. The data says that Oregon is the better side, that Indiana has been overvalued for the most of the season, which is surprising considering, the storylines and how bad they've been. Imagine if they were worse, says Shot Quality. So yeah, I think you can go against them. It's been like a feel good end of the season for Mike Woodson and co. And I don't buy it for a second. Give me the rude awakening. Give me the ugly exit. Give me the disgusting final game. Give me the reminder of why Mike Woodson is going to be out in the first place. Oregon, I think, is one of the better teams in the conference that, in that second tier that
They've
isn't
started to re-peak, too.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is a good time to buy in on them. You're going to get the price for their entire body of work and not just the recent play. And you're going to get maybe the price of the recent play and not the entire body of work for Indiana. So guess what side you always want to be on in that scenario? Fade the recent, take the full season, trust the data, Oregon Ducks. Oh, and I think, pretty strong programmatic stuff here. So I expect them to lock in March. They were a good money-making team this time last season.
The one caveat to that, though, shot quality had this game last week being Oregon by 2, and that's what the eye test showed, too.
I think that's what this game will actually open up as, probably close as, and I don't expect to really bet it unless it's if I can get -2 should be all right, but it's right there. Like this is in the numbers, but I got to see how everything's feeling. I got to make sure injury reports look good. Like this is an interesting game. This is also a good, I think, live spot. I expect the Big Ten tournament to have a lot of back and forth.
Over to one last conference tournament to handicap. It starts on Wednesday, the A10 Atlantic 10 Conference Tournament. Looking at the odds here, latest odds according to FanDuel and BetMGM. VCU right around -110, -115. FanDuel has the -115. Then it's Dayton, which I got yesterday, Sunday, on DraftKings +500. You could still get +440 on FanDuel. George Mason right behind them, third seed or second seed, actually. So Dayton being the third seed, yet the second shortest odds. George Mason +500 at MGM, +700 at FanDuel. St. Joe's +800 at both operators. Then it's Loyola Chicago, St. Bonaventure. Actually, pretty decent disparity for the Bonnies, +1,800 over at MGM, yet 40-1 at FanDuel. I bet Dayton yesterday, like I said, Justin. When you look at, if you're trying to theoretically fade the Rams, VCU generates the 25th highest turnover rate nationally, and their opponents, they hold their opponents to a 30.7% clip from behind the arc. So how do you negate that? Well, you have to have a team that could play up tempo, beat the press, and score pretty efficiently. And Dayton has one of the best offenses in the A10. They showed it. They upset VCU at VCU on Friday. VCU allowing its highest scoring output of the season, 79 to the Flyers, 1.19 points per possession. I'm a little bit weary of the Dayton spot potentially in the quarterfinals facing St. Joe's, but St. Joe's does struggle against transition and off-ball action, heavy offenses, and Dayton is very efficient in both of those respects. Nate Santos, in particular, had 24 points in that lone meeting against St. Joe's. Also, Dayton trying to be a bid stealer, no shot to make the tournament if they don't win the A10. So you're avoiding VCU until the final game, theoretically, of this conference tournament. You go back to non-conference play. Dayton lost to Iowa State, lost to North Carolina by 2 possessions or fewer, and took down UConn to end the Maui Invitational for the Flyers, and also took down Marquette in the latter part of non-conference play. So really strong non-conference resume outside of the A10. I'll take Dayton here, even at +440.
I will too. I definitely will too. This is we've been Dayton fans all season long over shot quality, while they shoot themselves in the foot and nowhere near the basket, because that's apparently what it's been all season long on the road in the A10. It's been hard to win, but this is the time where there's even pegging, right? Where no one's at home, where Dayton's skill and talent can take over games, and maybe they just didn't play well traveling. I don't know really what it was here, but this is a good spot to get in on them. There's no second bid here. There was expected to potentially be a second bid here. There's no such thing. So expect Dayton to have everything going. It's a proud program that had a down year when they were the odds-on favorite to win the conference in the regular season. I expect, things to sort of reset a bit. Everyone's 0-0. You just got to win the next game in front of you. It doesn't matter what your record was in the regular season. Just go out and play the next one. And I think given that, and I was going to make that comment when you said 3 in a row, it's not 3 in a row. 2 games are already done. You've already won the 2. It's always win the next game. Just always win the next game. Doesn't matter. We beat in the last 2. No, still got to win the next one. Split. Nope. Still got to win the next one. It's the next game. And so for Dayton, for anyone who's lost 2 in a row, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean you start with 5 less points. Doesn't mean they just get to shoot 35% or better. You got to still play. You can't just name Cooper Flagg and Broome co-players of the year. It's a cop-out. So,
is that your TED Talk of the day?
I think it's my fair shot of the day.
All right. How about?
I think you should choose, and it should be Broome. Give Broome the it's his award this year.
All right. SEC tournament tipping off on Tuesday. A couple games there, at least early on. So, Justin, I'm gonna let you open up the tank here for the rest of your conference tournament features. If you'd like to share, you have about 4 others that you haven't touched on that we've already hit on the show.
Yeah, I mean I think there's a lot on the bone. I like the MAC, the Mid-American. Ohio seems a little undervalued. Probably be looking there. Not crazy big on any of these plays. Pretty, small, standard, high volume type stuff. Trusting the edge long term. I think you can look over and maybe, it sounds crazy, but go with some big dogs over in the Big West. Everyone thinks it's going to be Irvine. Everyone thinks it's just going to be either Irvine or UC San Diego. Sure, if you want to take, for your Jerome pick, you want to take UC San Diego, I get it. They should do it. But that's not how betting works. You bet for the price. And for the price, there is most definitely value on someone like CSUN, value on Santa Barbara, 40-1. Again, this is just not true value of the probabilities of those teams winning the game. It's still college basketball. I don't care how good anyone on any of these teams are. It is a college basketball game. You want to take those big numbers because in the long run, all you need is one of them to hit. You hit 140-1 in the entire conference futures season, and you could lose every single other one. You're probably not placing 40 bets, right? So if you smartly play 40-1s, that should be 20-1s. Eventually, you will win money. That is the philosophy. So that's where we're at. Another interesting one, I think you can go to we didn't talk about Conference USA, but I think there's some value in Conference USA. I like Liberty to win it. Again, Jerome picked Liberty, fine, sure. Value pick Western Kentucky, I think has some good value there. So there's a few. There's some good stuff. The WAC is going to be fun. Seattle, Cal Baptist, I think have good value there. I think I'm going to take Seattle. They're just smacking everybody. So I don't see why that changes. Baptist, I think what's the pick in that conference? What's the consensus? I think it's Grand Canyon, right?
Correct. And Utah Valley.
Right. It's pretty close. But again, I think Utah Valley, Grand Canyon, Seattle, and Cal Baptist are actually a core 4 that are all pretty localized and should all be valued pretty similarly. So, and that's bracket independent because I don't have it in front of me, but assuming that they were all getting no bye and just facing off against other teams and would eventually face each other, I like it. I think some good value there. Grand Canyon probably gets it done for the Jerome, but other than that, I could see Utah Valley doing it too.
One thing in favor of your Lancers take with Cal Baptist, couple 2-possession losses or fewer to the 2 best teams in the conference. They beat Grand Canyon earlier in the season, but lost by 2 on February 22nd and also lost by 5 and 6 to Utah Valley. So clearly they can compete.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's going to be some of these, the second and third rounds of these tournaments are going to be great. The first rounds, but it's going to be a good champ week. This is the one day of the year where we're really going to have even the time to critique it. And then we're going to be our eyes are going to be spinning in the back of our head until April. So better enjoy it.
Yeah, my last piece of advice here on the show, pace yourselves, as Justin kind of alluded to there, because it's a long champ week, and then you got March Madness. Don't chase, as we always say, but even if it's not to that degree, you don't need to play the whole card. Even though this isn't the end of the regular season and there are obviously more edges out there, because obviously teams have more to play for at this point with a lot of one and dones in one bid leagues. But still, you don't want to go out there and spray the board on a Tuesday afternoon and then you look at your account and, well, can't really bet much on Wednesday or Thursday.
If you break up a betting unit into 20 plays, have
for
some
sure.
fun.
That's why pacing. It's another way of pacing.
Yes, I agree. And I think the secret that a lot of gamblers maybe don't know is like you can still get the rush from a smaller unit size. And I think if you trust your skill, volume shows that as truth. Volume is the test. If you're scared to bet at volume, it's because you're scared you actually aren't good. And if you're scared you aren't good, then you shouldn't be betting. So if you are like,
that's a nice little liner for a TED Talk.
I know. Look, again, it's not for everyone. There's some people who are great at picking their spots, but the fact of the matter is that those people would tell you if they had more spots, they would bet them. No one's sitting there saying, I'm letting spots pass by.
Yeah.
Right? They have their edge. They know what they're looking for. They know their type of thing, and they play it. You want to exercise your edge as much as possible. And I personally believe that if you want to lay claim to being a master of handicapping the entire sport, from the WAC to the SWAC to the Big East to the Big West, then you have to do volume. You can't sit there and have, 50 plays for an entire college basketball season and look at me with a 6,000 game season and tell me you can handicap any game. You didn't. I think once you get to that 1,300, 1,500 bets in a season, you start talking about like all right, there's undeniable proof that your result is the real thing. Yes, you could probably have some aberration, but now do that for 5 years. Get, 7,000, 7,500 plays. If you can win over 7,500 plays in an evolving marketplace like college basketball, that's like, good job. Congratulations. Go retire. Get your bankroll up. Try to develop a network and try to get down with without shaving for a while.
I will say this is where Justin and I are polar opposite, not in terms of mindset. I like all those takes are valid just in terms of volume, because if I look at my overall numbers this year, I have bet a grand total of 85 games. But I am that person that you described. Right. I play spots and I'm very selective. Like, I have had, full disclosure, in the VSiN contest that I participated in, free contest. Yeah, I haven't done well, but that's also because I'm betting like 3 games on a Saturday. I'm not betting all 5 games that I'm picking in the contest. So for me,
I know that life.
Right, playing 5 games is before conference tournament, before March Madness, is a tough handicap, because on Saturday the only games that I ended up playing was Marquette and Belmont. And Belmont I got on Saturday morning. So that, and by the way, don't even get me started on that game, because they got hosed. The referees needed Drake to get to the championship game, the way they were calling some of those fouls with 1 second left on the shot clock. But yeah, there are different strategies, different ways to handicap. But I agree with you, Justin. If you want to claim to be this expert handicapper, and you say, because I haven't focused on SWAC this year, I haven't focused on Big Sky.
Right, and your X amount of games might be in the Power Fives, and you might feel great about the SEC, and that might be more than enough in the SEC. But like, to say you could cover the vast expanse, which I think, first of all, not very many people even try to claim. That's not really something you're trying to claim. You're not really trying to say, oh, well, I can tell you what's going on in the SWAC. I barely know what's going on in the SWAC and the MEAC. I just, at some level, they're so variable that they're hard to bet. So, like, there obviously is some liminal space in this game that no one even dares to trudge through. But again, I like to think that I can fire wide and still pull it home, and that means to me that I can, you know, honestly put my feet a little higher in the air, right? Because I have the evidence that comes in, and I'm not really like, oh well, is my again, no offense, Eli, but is my 80 game sample a true result of my skill? But if you're really only playing one, then that can be long term. I know I have a pick of the day. I've done one pick every day for a long time, and we're at
And you're up.
54%. Right. And I'm
Yeah.
54%. And like the difference is that I'm not about to go lay 5 picks on a one a day type thing. So I know it's like a concrete gain. I've really built it up. I'm not going to be able to wipe it out in one hot second. But at volume, there's the give and the take. I could go 14-0. I could go 0-14. I could look like Big Cat in one day. I could look like inverse Big Cat in the other. It's really just whatever.
Right. If you want to deal with variance, and if you want to kind of mitigate it,
I think the last thing I'll say is some people think that more plays are more variance, and that's incorrect.
No, it mitigates the variance.
Correct. You arrive at your actual result the fastest.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But again, some people might not think they even have they don't think the certain bets qualify. They're like, I'm not going to bet that. So how could I develop that volume? I'm just not even going to try the CAA. Who cares about Drexel and Elon, Justin? You can have fun there. So
yeah, you can.
I get it.
That's what I have to say.
I get it. Look, different strokes for different folks. But like, if you were to come to me and say, well, I'm the best college basketball bettor in the world, I'd say, well, if you can't handle Towson versus Drexel, then I don't think so. And I think I'd be fair to say that. So that's that's.
I mean, listen, I just kind of if we're gonna go all out on the table here, put everything on the table. I have changed I have bet way less games than I did,
Right.
let's say 3 or 4 years ago. I was a different handicapper back then. I would post all of my picks on Twitter. Like I had 14 game Saturday cards. I would post all the results. And that's not to say that, but there is a different way that I go about it now than I did back then. So you evolve. I am a completely different person than I was 5 years ago. So everything is what it is. I will say, not patting myself on the back. Obviously, things could change with a blink of an eye, but I'm at 58% on the year. So I feel pretty good about it. But you're right. If there was somebody that bet 85 games like me, and this isn't me, also came to you and said, I am the greatest handicapper alive, you would say, well, let's see you bet everything.
Right. Exactly. And again, I might not be the most profitable handicapper alive, but if you go toe to toe with me on anything, I think in the long run I could do better if it was like random draw. We don't know what game we're about to get, right? Like I would trust myself in that scenario. While yes, there are definitely going to be games that I could lose to anyone to on aggregate. Yeah, I think the people are going to yell at us about where the picks are again. So.
Well, to be fair, they're all before
an
this
hour in. Yes,
exactly.
That's where we get to have our fun. It's where we get to have our fun.
Right.
Podcast. I love it. I love getting because it's. I mean, I'm sure to some people it's intriguing. I think it's intriguing to me because this is how. Right. This is how you develop strategy, and there's definitely times where I'm like, okay, well there's like those like generational spots, and when I hit those at a high clip rate, I'm like, why do I bother fighting for 54.5% when sure could I go 59% at a low rate, but at some level you do have to think the math is just the math. So I'll always be math. I don't really let my human nature and thought about it because when you think about it as a person, you want to slim it down. You think that feels like less risk and you think it feels easier, but in reality, it is harder and it is what the books want. So I don't know.
They also want parlays. A lot of parlays.
Well, that of course. As long as you're betting straights, it takes 90 losses to lose your 100 units. So it's very different, and you're very likely going to win. You know, you're probably going to take 10 weeks to burn 100 units instead of 3. So
before Justin pulls the suit out of the closet, we're we're going to wrap up the show here on Beat the Closing Number. If you want to watch Justin pretend to put on a suit, you can do so on our YouTube channel, The Lines. One word, remember to give us a thumbs up and ring the bell to get notifications whenever we go live with more episodes of College Basketball Podcasts. But for Justin, for myself, Eli Hershkovich, check out play.thelines.com to win free college basketball contests and gift cards as a result. Also, you could sign up for our Sweet 16, pick the correct 16 teams in the NCAA tournament and win money in our free contest for that all over at play.thelines.com. Betting guides are up at thelines.com. Discord channel, it's free, has our free bets as well from myself and the rest of our staff. So thanks for watching and listening to this edition of Beat the Closing Number. So long, everybody, and good luck with your college basketball picks.